Hey everyone, welcome to the Fit with Fallon podcast. And today I have a very special guest. He is a longtime friend of mine and an acupuncturist who has worked on me. You might have seen him in one of my old Fit with Fallon episodes on YouTube, but he is here via Zoom. His name is Sal Verduzco. And again, he's an acupuncturist. He's trained in traditional Chinese medicine, and he's going to teach us how to heal using acupuncture and Chinese medicine. How are you, Sal?
Hi, Fallon. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I'm so excited. We have been talking about getting you on. You now live in Puerto Rico.
Yes.
So I'm so happy that you can make it. You've been a busy man because you are opening your own retreat soon. So can you tell us about this rejuvenation center? What is the name going to be, and how are you going to be helping people?
Oh, great. Thank you for letting me do that. This is great. This is in creation right now. So, it's beautiful to talk about it and start to visualize with you and everyone what this will be. And it kind of came about because of my needs. If I really think about it, hold on, let me, it's,
that's good.
My camera's sliding. But what we're thinking is, what happened is, when COVID happened and the pandemic was going strong, I had a clinic in Los Angeles, and I had to close the doors when it first started. And it gave me an opportunity to think about my next life transition and what I wanted to do. And I really wanted to dig deeper into the medicine and the philosophies of the medicine that I work with in a very kinesthetic and experiential way. A lot of my continuing education units and advanced studies in acupuncture always came from these practitioners that would go off into nature and meditate. I'm so sorry, Fallon. We might need to start here. This camera keeps sliding on me. So I decided to go off into nature and to meditate and to find...
You mean literally nature?
Yeah, literally go into nature, yeah. And meditate and find these connections with energy and chi flow in the body. It's interesting because Chinese medicine really started from the observance of natural laws and then applying these observed natural laws to the body. And so it really dealt with chi and energy and health from a different perspective, because it's over 2,000 years old, and they didn't have the scientific diagnostic machines that we have today. Mm-hmm. So it really was about being in tune with energy and spirit and nature and embodying that. And we can see that.
Be in tuned, and how did you be in tune? Like, there's a lot of us who, we grow up in the United States. We're very, westernized, and we think of our bodies in a different way than how people who practice Chinese medicine think of the body. So how can you get in tune? We're so detached. We're on our phones. We're on the computers all the time.
Correct.
We only know when something is wrong when we feel pain. So how do we get in tune with our bodies and spirit? Or how did you, in order to, go on this new transformation in your life?
That's a good question. And you're really good at these insights, Fallon, let me tell you. So if we really think about it and we stop and we pause and we really contemplate what that all means, it's how do we find that inner connection with source? And source, I mean, where is that balance, that place where we feel we're present, we're connected, we're focused on our environment and our relationships and what's going on. It's a moment of peace or Zen, if you will. And we're so distracted from that center just because of all those things that you just mentioned in society. Yeah. So how do we get connected with that? Well, I think the first thing is to realize when you're not connected and when you're out of balance, So
I have a little story I wanted to explain right there. So I, on my own discovery of trying to find my center, my balance, and trying to be in tune with myself, I had went to this Reiki healer, and at the time I was like, you know, not in a good relationship, and just my job I wasn't really happy with, and it was just a lot going on. And I always put on a smile, like, this is me. Hey, like, no matter what I'm dealing with in my life. And I remember going to this Reiki healer and literally going in, hey, nice to meet you. And he started coughing. He was like, oh, and I was like, are you okay? Like, he was like having a coughing attack. And he was like, your energy, and I was just like, I'm trying to give off positive energy. What's the problem? So he started working on me, and he like focused on my stomach area, and he's like doing all this stuff. And I'm like, so my roommate at the time, her boyfriend referred me to him, and he was like, just be open. Just please don't. Cause I'm like, what is he doing? Like, he's doing all this stuff. Yeah. And then he was like, oh, and then he stopped like coughing and doing stuff. And he was like, did you hear that? And I was like, did I hear what? Because I'm not in tune with my body, obviously. And he was like, I heard something say, and mind you, I didn't say anything to him. He was like, I heard something say, I should leave him. And I was like, what? So I didn't even know that I was holding on to all this pain and all this. But when I left there, I felt so much better. I felt so much lighter. And then he was telling me that, you know, for me, in order for me to find that balance, I had to let go of things that no longer served me and listen to my body, listen to that gut feeling when something isn't right. So I don't know how everybody finds that place, but for me, I know when I hold on to things that are not serving me, I block that connection, that hearing. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's kind of how I found, you know, I guess how to be in tune with my body is I got to let go of things.
Yeah, and it came out of a state of imbalance, right? Yeah. And that's, I think, a lot of people can relate to this, is I call it life medicine, if you will. We have these really difficult or profound situations happen in our lives where everything seems to just pause. And you've become in this space where time really doesn't exist because whatever hit you kind of shook you at your core in a way. And it's that space where we connect with our higher self and we start to receive messages from spirit, from our guides, from our ancestors, from God. They start to speak to you, and you start to be open to listen because we were shook so hard from the regular patterns of our life that we now can hear. And so this kind of work and energy work is about relearning how to exercise that space where we can hear more often than wait for something traumatic in our lives to happen, you know? And that's where the healing comes from. Peeling back these layers.
When you were saying, you know, you reconnect after that situation, literally, like, then I found and was dating my husband, and within 3 months we were looking at rings, and 6 months we were like engaged, and like everything went so fast. So what you're saying, I was out of balance in a situation that wasn't serving me. And then once I let go, I feel like I was able to hear and discern what was for me.
Right. And it's also the other concept of knowing that knowledge and that space has always been there for you. You just needed to remember it. You just needed something to help you clear away the garbage and these blocked traumas and belief systems that we get piled on us from a set up system, to then going back to really what's important, the spirit and the heart. And so that's beautiful. And that's a learning process, right? You went through a learning process to actually tap into that. And once you tap into it, it's like riding a bike. You start to have this spirit and muscle memory in a way, right? And it just starts to flow and go. So yeah, that's what I love about, Chinese medicine is also very physical, and there's a lot of research happening in it. So there's a lot of people that are dedicated to specific medical conditions that you can physically help with acupuncture. And there's also the side of that that's very energetic and very spiritual with it. And so the philosophy of acupuncture is really based on the chi. And what is chi? And everybody thinks, just a general concept of energy.
Yeah, please tell us what chi is. I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
What is
what is the chi? And then so you have all these, just energy, and you get these images in your head of what chi's all about. But when you study the chi, then you realize there are so many different forms of the chi and examples of the chi. And the chi itself, if you look at the Chinese character, it's like a combination of uncooked rice and vapor and gas. And they combine those two characters to symbolize chi. And if you think about it, chi is, in Chinese medicine, has two basic forms that are really important for us. One of it is to understand that it is an energy manifestation of both the spiritual and the physical at the same time. So, and the second part of that is that it is always in a flux between a vaporous spiritual state and an aggregated physical state. So if we think of that on just that alone, right, we can philosophize on that forever, and people have, that we can see how an energetic state out here, a belief system, a stress, something that, a unhealthy pattern we continue to do that's active out here, can become physical and diseased in the body, and vice versa. Something physical and diseased in the body can then manifest an energy or emotion and behavior that's not of my spirit, because I'm kind of like diseased in here. So if you ever had a family member that
explain that last part.
So think of like if you had a family member that has a heart condition, or someone that has severe cancer and their body is very, very diseased. You can see the emotional and mental decline of that person, and emotions that come out that not really are of them because the pattern is stuck, the organ is diseased. Yep. And then Chinese medicine goes and specifies different emotional correlations with different organs in the body too. So chi is a huge, huge concept. And then when you look at chi itself, remember these concepts were developed before we had all these modern diagnostic tools. So it was about looking at nature, observing nature, seeing the natural laws, and then applying them to the body. And if we look at it now, it's almost like equivalent to physiology, right? Because if we didn't have the diagnostic terms, we have to look at the body in a different way. And they would look at it as a disruption of natural flows in the body. So look at your body as a mountain, if you will. And it's funny because even if you look at more ancestral concepts in different cultures and ancestral cultures, they have the same kind of terminology sometimes. In fact, the indigenous are always paying homage to mountains because of how they feed and connect us to the earth and guard us, and bring messages from heaven because of their mountaintops. But us, if you think of ourselves as a mountain, you can think of the flow of blood and chi all as like river pathways that go through the body. And in fact,
like veins and the kind of like a river. Okay.
It's all like a flow. Yeah. And there's points called the 5 shoe points. And these points are all labeled after the formations of streams and rivers in the natural environment. So you have points that start from like a well or a spring, and then go to a well, and then go to a stream, and then go to a river, and then go to a sea. And they all are different ways that chi flows and then goes into the body. So it's really fascinating to then study that and the different formations of that. And what's really important about chi is how we define it inside the body. So we have different concepts of chi flow. The first one is called the original chi. And that original chi is kind of stored in your abdomen area. So when you were talking about them working through your abdomen, we're working through this original chi. And this original chi is called the pre-heaven chi. So this chi is kind of like what's passed down from our lineage, from our ancestors and from spirit, that comes into this lower area that starts the whole process of energy formation. It's like the motive force for chi development in the body. Yeah.
And that's interesting because whenever you have a gut feeling, you feel it in your stomach, but sometimes I refer that to like God talking to me or the Holy Spirit, because I'm like, ooh, that didn't feel right. I need to be careful. I might not want to do that. So that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. So then you have that chi there, and there's a spiritual aspect to that chi as well. And if you look at it, a lot of South American indigenous cultures too, that whole center is kind of where we relate ourselves with the universe too. There's kind of energy pathways that emanate from this lower area to interact with nature and the universe and spirit too. So that whole center is really important. And in Chinese martial arts, that lower dantian area is all down there. And that's the point of focus when you're moving and doing these Tai Chi motions and martial art motions. That power all comes from the center. And then you have this original chi that comes up, and then it goes through this process of getting chi from your food. So that's your digestion. That's called the Gucci, I believe. So
Gucci.
Yeah, that's right. So that chi comes up, and then that original chi helps the extraction process of that chi from the food. So that's a whole other separate type of chi. And then the chi gets more refined as it comes up through that whole digestive process and goes to the heart and the chest. And that area is called the zong chi, the chest chi. And that's where the air comes in, and the Gucci combines with the air and becomes this zong chi. And that starts to formulate this third chi physiology, if you will, in the body. And then the final process, this is how crazy it gets, just so you know.
Okay.
Then it goes to the other process where the original chi just helps the zong chi, and then it turns into something called the true chi, or the upright chi, the zhen chi of the body. The zhen chi is kind of like the final formation of all these processes, with which then this chi is going to be distributed through the body and used in how it should be used. And that's the chi that a lot of us as acupuncturists are concerned with, the zhen chi, because it's almost like a presentation of all these chi processes that happened before. So when you go to an acupuncturist, they're going to ask, or any traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, they're going to ask you about your diet, about your sleep patterns, about your they're going to ask you about your energy levels. They're going to ask you about the color of your feces, the form of your feces, like all these other questions that are basically manifestations of how well your Zen Chi is doing, your mental clarity, all this stuff. And then we go from there. We say, okay, what is incorrect in the Zen Chi, and how can we support the body back into balance so the Zen Chi is proper? And from that point on, if you think about it, if we can help you on that level, your regular medical stuff can help. If we can help your digestion, some of your pharmaceuticals are going to work better. You're going to be balancing your blood sugars. You're going to be
absorbing your medicine better.
Yeah, and you're going to be healing your digestive tract, right? Because we're focused on the digestion and that whole process of the food transformation down there, and that's going to affect your mental clarity and your energy. So it really is just.
Sorry, they say that a lot of depression, there's studies showing that people who suffer from anxiety, depression, sometimes it's just your gut being imbalanced. You don't have the right bacteria in there, or, you're just eating like crap, and it's literally affecting your gut microbiome, which affects your mental state. So that's really interesting that, Chinese medicine takes that into account when they're trying to diagnose somebody. So how does the needles come into play with this? Like, how did acupuncture and needles, how does that affect your Zen Chi?
Well, so that's one of the tools, right? To affect the flow of the chi. So if really disharmony and imbalance brings about disease in the body, as an acupuncturist, you want to see where that's lying in the chi flow of the body. And we have meridians, or collaterals and channels, that are the pathways or the streams, right? When we're talking about the veins and stuff, of the flow of chi. And acupuncture points in particular are points that can influence that flow of chi. So
So
over
where are your
thousands of
meridians?
years.
Is it the same
Yeah.
thing as chakras?
Chakras, yeah, it's very similar. Yeah. So then you have in chakras, you have the nadis, and those are the channels of energy flow in that system. So and also too with chakras in particular though, then we're talking about kind of like the electromagnetic fields that happen off of these flows, so we have then now these orbs of energy that are extending beyond our body and getting into the subtle levels that are above and surrounding our body. Which in chi formation, after you get the true chi, it gets divided into something called the wei chi, which is your defensive chi that flows through the outside of the body. And then you have your yin chi, which is the nutritive chi that goes in to then start to support the organ functions and warming the muscles and the tissues and all that kind of stuff. So it's really beautiful, the whole look and makeup of chi and how it surrounds the body. The other important thing about chi is also applying it to the yin yang concept, the balance of yin and yang.
Working on me, and you would always reference that, and I would just think of we used to wear them in the 90s, the yin yang, the black and white.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and actually it's called the Tai Chi symbol or the Tai Chi symbol, right? And that symbol kind of encompasses the four main philosophies of yin and yang and how we look at it. The first one is to realize that yin and yang are opposites, that there are opposites, and if you have one thing, there's going to be the opposite of it. And the second thing is to realize that even though they're opposite and they cancel each other out, they're also interdependent. You can't have one without the other. And then the third thing is that they mutually consume each other. So it's kind of like there's a conservation of energy that happens too. So if one aspect is at excess, the other one's going to be at deficient, and vice versa. If the other one starts to come up, the other one's going to come down. So there's an energy conservation that happens with physiology in the body too. And we see that, right? The body's always trying to come back into balance on its own. It has a certain pH that it's always going to be at, has a certain acidity level that's supposed to be there when you're digesting foods, and it's always going through these balances. And then the last thing is to know that yin can always transform into yang. It has a little bit of that point, and yang can always transform into yin. And it just correlates with the internal conditions being right and the time factor, that it's the right time for that to happen. So if you want to examine like the development of an egg, the baby's going to come out when the time is right and the internal conditions are ready. And when the day turns into night, or when seasons change. It's all about these transforming aspects of yin and yang. So it's not some people think it's about just maintaining this balance and you're in just this one state the whole time. No, it's a dynamic relationship that in the long term creates this beautiful flow of life. Yeah. And if we go to the original idea of chi again, us as human beings in these classical texts, we're described as the creation of chi that comes from heaven and earth. So the human being and the human nature in and of itself exist because there is a combination of the two, and we're in the middle to facilitate this. Wow. So if you look at that philosophically too, if we look at just the yin yang, the Tai Chi symbol, and the circle, that represents unity. Yeah. And the importance to always remember that there's unity in all these concepts, and this is what makes life. And in the indigenous concepts too, it's about unity too, because once we get too much into the duality and we think of just the opposite, these two, and being separate, that's where we break down. This is where we stop to commune as human beings and spirit. And we're kind of like in that phase right now, right? We're realizing what is supporting our unity and supporting ourselves, and what is breaking down systems and not serving us. So we're at a really beautiful time for this kind of work, because we haven't been thinking like this, or we're just starting to think like this. Yeah. And we need stuff to help support us in this transformation and in this process. Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful time for this interview, and even how we connected, just for you guys out there listening or watching. You would sometimes just randomly hit me up and send me a message, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I was thinking of you, and I haven't talked to you in like 2.5 years. And it was just like, it's just like the timing was just like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my goodness, I
Yeah.
need you right now in my life to help me with everything that's going in the world. I need to be more balanced. And then you said you would do the podcast. I was like, great, you can help us all at the same time.
Yeah. I call that the spiritual Wi-Fi. We have like our
we're
Facebook
definitely
and all the technology stuff, but the spiritual Wi-Fi is really where you can just get in connection with that unity and that spirit and be able to reach out from there. So that's kind of like, wow, that's how we started the question with Casa De Spiritu. But that's kind of the goal of what I want to create out there, is a space that is clear of outside influences, so you can just be with self and really work on your healing at whatever layers you need to work with, and to have several tools with which you can work with yourself on an energetic level, whether it be yoga, whether it be Reiki, whether it be acupuncture, whether it be, breathing exercises and meditation and just being quiet in nature. So that's our goal. Our goal is to create a place of healing and sanctuary and self-exploration, to really be able to, I'll be there, and other people will be there, and my fiance will be there too, to be able to sit with you and hold space for you and help you in your journey in healing. And that's really important too. I think that we have to realize whatever facilitator might be there for you, it's ultimately you that has to make these connections, and make these awarenesses. No, I don't want to put a dogma on somebody, because I believe in all this ancestral stuff in so many different ways. So I don't want to put a dogma on somebody and say your healing has to be this way, or you have to follow my rules to do this way. I think inside there is the intelligence from God and the intelligence from spirit, because this is where we come from. So we need to get in touch with that, because that's the ultimate guide of our journey here. And I love exploring these ancient tools, because I look at it and that's what I see. I see God working through them, and it's beautiful.
So you've worked on me before, and I've seen you work with other people, and healing has happened. What type of, I guess, illnesses, diseases, or issues can an acupuncturist work on and heal?
Okay. So it gets complicated at that point, because when you're licensed, then when you're licensed, then we can't really say healing for any kind of physical disorder. And I like that, believe it or not, because I don't think we can heal ultimately on a physical level. Yeah, go ahead.
I think what you're saying is, again, going back to what you said earlier, it's you helping balance and the body healing itself, not you healing the person. It's allowing the body to heal itself, do what it does.
Correct. Yeah. And if I'm going to help somebody with sugar control and diabetes, we're going to go ahead and go through the motions to help support the body's function through nutrition and acupuncture and circulation and blood flow. But there's that one aspect where the person still has to take on the journey of eating properly and proper nutrition, and even connecting that with some kind of emotional addiction pattern. So a lot of times with diabetes, I'm looking at not just the physical things I can do with Chinese medicine, but again, now let's jump up to that spiritual connection too. And a lot of times with diabetics, they're missing out on the sweetness of life for some reason. So we start to examine, like, what are you missing out? What are you replacing with the food and the sugar that you're missing out in life, and shifting that dynamic. So then that becomes more about a journey of your responsibility in this healing process, which ultimately you're your own healer. Even in Western medicine, you can get the cancer down to a certain point, but your own immune system has to decide, I'm coming back and I'm going to knock it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really that balance of going from, like we talked about the chi concept, from the more spiritual aspect to the physical dense aspects. So I got lost in our question.
Yeah, no, that was great. I was asking, like, what kind of illnesses can you help facilitate healing with? And
Yeah.
I have met so many women in their 30s, just like me. And I explained some of my, health situations that I was going through. I think at this age, there's a lot of issues with, PMS or PCOS or endometriosis or fertility, or why do you think that is? And what does that represent? Like you were saying, for diabetics, they're missing out on the sweetness of life.
Yeah.
I was wondering, in that lower, original chi area, is something unbalanced that's affecting all of us that are having these issues.
Yeah. So there's a huge thing with that, right? First of all, there's the nutrition factor right now, and how food is made and what we're eating and what's conveniently available for us, and what we have now generationally think as food, as opposed to our previous generations, what they thought of as food.
Yeah.
And we're taking in a lot more chemicals. We're taking in a lot more hydrogenated products. We're taking in a lot more GMOs and all that kind of stuff that are affecting us in that way. But then again, let's bump it up to a spiritual level again, right? And try to see what else is happening there. Well, we're dealing with a patriarchal dominated society. So I think when that is repressing the feminine energy, and I don't mean and I hate to say just male and female. I believe it's always about the balance of male and female within all of us.
Yeah. We all have that male and female energy.
Exactly. And the balance of that's really important within to then heal without. And so when we do have that patriarchal energy, or the male energy, or the dominant yang energy, the yin is going to suffer. The feminine is going to suffer. It's going to be stagnated. It's going to face depression and anger and repression. Yeah. And all that energy is going to get channeled in the female organs, in those yin organs. And in males too, it'll get channeled into the yin aspects of the male too. They're not going to be nurtured and cared for in their own body. So I think that if you think of that, the anger and frustration, that goes to the liver. That's associated with the liver in Chinese medicine. And the liver, think about what happens in the liver on a physiological perspective from our perspective now. It's hormone regulation. It's detoxification of the body and the blood. It's all of those things. So it makes sense. It really does make sense if we play with this spectrum and bring it to a physiological perspective as well of what we can help with and assist with. You always want to be advised by your doctor. You always want to see what your medical condition is going on and what they advise for you. And then we can also work on this energetic level. So you feel that you have that empowerment process over it as well. And so I think that's a very exciting time, because everybody's kind of open now to realizing that we do have a lot of healing to do. In society too, we have a lot of healing to do. And where is that answer? And I think we also realize it's not politically, because politics, they all have their self-interest and they're out for that. But we have to heal within first. That's what we have control over. Heal within ourselves, within our families, within our community, connect from a spiritual place. And I always go to, I want to think logically of everything. And I go through my logical process. And in the very end, I always want to check in with a spiritual heart. And I want to see, does it align spiritually too? And if the two match, then it's great. If not, then there's some healing that I need to do and figure out what's going on to move forward. But so there's, from that perspective, there's a lot of different physical conditions you can help with focusing on your energy, focusing on your emotions, and processing your emotions. And that's a big thing. A lot of people have emotions that are repressed and stuck in the body. Because we stigmatize them so much, and especially females in the patriarchal society, right? That they seem weak if they cry, or even in males too, right? If they cry, it's a weakness, or they're crazy, or any of that kind of stuff. But from ancestral perspectives, our emotions are tools. They are not there to dominate us. They are there to help clear us and clean us.
I always say that I'm a very emotional person. But I always say that's my superpower, because I feel like I can empathize with people, I can feel people when they walk in the room. There's some people that I'll just be like, I don't know why I don't have a good feeling about that person. And they've never done anything to me. They've never said anything to me. And then, you know, later on, there was this one specific situation. I didn't have a good feeling about this guy, and my friend ended up dating him, and it was a really bad situation. And I never knew anything about him, or, you know, but I tend to get feelings and emotions, and I feel like sometimes as a woman, and it's that time of the month, they could be out of control. However, I do feel like they do lead me and guide me in my personal life and my business life. So
yeah, and that's beautiful that you're able to be in tune with that. You know, the heart center is another, like the heart in Chinese medicine is considered like the emperor of the organs, and it houses what's called the Shen, or the spirit. And it's not just the regular spirit, but it's the emotional spirit as well as the spiritual. And it's the house of the Shen. So at night, it's when the Shen comes back into the heart to reside and sleep and nurture and relax. So when people are really disturbed emotionally and stressed out, they have insomnia because the Shen cannot go reside in the heart again and relax. It's crazy energy that happens. So we need to figure out how to clear that and how to balance that again, so the Shen can then go back into its house and rejuvenate, get connected and focused, and all that stuff. And the heart actually sends, there's been studies now where we know that the heart, we consider, has a brain itself because of the complex neural system in it. And there's more messages that go from the heart to the brain than the brain to the heart.
Wow.
So this whole like feeling that you have of things really does reside in this heart area. There's an institute called Heart Math. And I think they have this thing called heart rate variability, where they match see what's going on with the heart rhythm. And they did a study where they had this computer system up, and they would show people like a shocking, disturbing picture, and then show people a picture that's really peaceful or cute and nice, And they were finding that the heart would respond sometimes, like a lot of times, before the picture would even arise. Yeah. So it's like there's almost like an intuition of what the person was going to experience before they actually experience. Wow. So that's how crazy this and powerful this energy is.
When me and my husband watch TV, I will tell him if it's like a movie that's very like loud and cars and fighting and shooting, I can't take it. And he's like, it's just a movie. But I tell him like it's energetically, it's like too much for me. What does that mean?
Well, that means that you're very sensitive. I don't think that's a bad thing, like but like I know it's not real,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've anesthetized ourselves with that kind of stuff, and we desensitize sometimes ourselves with that. And that's okay, but that's part of this illusionary world, allowing us to be distant from the actual connection with spirit sometimes. Because if we can be anesthetized or kind of numb to some of those images, then we can disconnect from a certain aspect of life in a way. We can, and if you ever notice it, it's always about revenge or getting even,
that's true.
Something else. So we're instituting the world of duality sometimes in those things, and that's not unity. So duality becomes, it's okay as long as someone's an other and evil or of something else, I can attack it, I can kill it, I can damage it, I can go crazy with it. Now this is getting real deep. But
kind of what we're going through in society with oppression, and like as long as there's certain images in the media, then it's okay because they're bad people, or
it's the other, and we really, and it's you have in cultures, in different belief systems, we do have to analyze what's going on somewhere, and we have to be cautious and protective, right? We always want to be protective, but where's the unity? We should be striving for the unity, to then create healing, as opposed to more divisiveness and more destruction. So again, it comes back to that unity symbol, and find out, where are we at? Where are we interrelated? How do we support each other? And where's that unity that we can then come back and heal. And that goes, we can take that same example if we look at, we're talking about different cultures in society, but look at our family dynamics.
Yeah.
Right? That's where it starts. Our family dynamics are huge and test us. Right now, families are breaking apart over things that are going around, you know?
I think I've reached out for you for help on some of, it's a trying time, but you know, it's all about, like you said, unity and coming back. We're family no matter what, you know, so.
Yeah. And that's where we'll do the healing work. That's where we call because I work with a little bit of indigenous concepts too, but that's where we call cleaning the seed of the spirit, cleaning the seed of the soul. So we can open up these energetic pathways from a spirit connection again, as opposed to block traumas, which a lot of us are dealing with. And our block traumas get handed down from generation to generation to generation. So it's constantly challenging those beliefs and opening them up to a healing perspective. Oh,
you spoke to me before about the ego and how you need to work on your ego, and that the ego can serve you. It's not all bad. And you were speaking about traumas, and how does the ego play into you know, being unbalanced and manifesting illnesses or disease?
Yeah. So again, we're going to look from the energetic concept, right? And when we talk about what we focus on and what stresses us out, that all causes a physical reaction that chronically can then start to manifest as a physical disease in the body. And egos have usually been developed when we were very young, usually, from some kind of trauma growing up. And the ego came in to actually help us and serve us to survive that trauma. And people have different archetypes, right, in ego centers that they talk about. And I basically look at 4 and a combination of 4. And I got this from working with the Muska tribe, Ahate and the Muska tribe, where we had like kind of 4 ego types. One of them was the distant one, the one that would take off. If something would happen, you're just gone, you know, like where did that person go? Poof, you know, just to avoid anything. The other person is kind of the poor me syndrome. Like, it always happens to me. I can't do anything. The victim kind of mindset. And then you have the interrogator, the one that's going to question every little tiny thing. And then you have the intimidator, the one that's going to berate you, make you feel like crap, talk down to you. And all of these happen from their own insecurities that arose from something they had to be protected with in their traumatic life. Now, those egos are really hard to get rid of. And people always say, oh, you want to get rid of and transcend the ego. But the ego, energetically, it's there. And it's always going to be there. But what you want to do is realize when it starts to happen, when it starts to take over your rational mind, when it starts to become like an operating thing that you're unconscious of. So as you start to become conscious of those egos and when they arise, you want to create a relationship with them. You want to realize they're there, thank them for helping you out when you needed help at that time. And then you can transform these egos, just like everything has its opposite. You can transform it energetically to its opposite companion. You can take an intimidator and transform it to a very inspiring, positive, motivating leader.
Wow.
Because they have that energy.
Power,
right?
that, yeah.
Exactly. So when you do it, why break someone down? Let's turn around and motivate them and then just inspire them in that way, because you have the capability, you have the gifts. An interrogator.
What about the ego that runs off?
Yeah, the distant one. Those are the healers. Those are the people that have been through such dark crap in their life, you know, that they had to run. They had to close up and run from it. And they're usually the ones that are super emotionally sensitive to everything too. Yeah. And so they have to pull out because they've been through such a dark level.
Whenever I get into an argument, I just shut down. I don't want to talk. I don't want to. I hate confrontation.
Right. So then those people, when you recognize that happens, those are the ones that can see the nuances of energy and emotions and behaviorisms and stuff like that, and can really identify stuff to help people heal. So a lot of those are healers.
That is so interesting. You're like blowing my mind, because my husband always tells me, he was like, "You're not a psychiatrist. You're always diagnosing
Yeah.
people." And I'm like, "No, but this person and this."
Yeah, exactly. So they've been through so much crap. They have to make sense of things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they can turn around and help people heal with that knowledge that they have, and that attunement to those energy frequencies.
And that's probably why I'm a health coach, helping people. I'm doing this podcast to help people.
Yeah, it's always been that underlying current, right? Yeah. So that's beautiful. So it's about creating the relationship with the ego, acknowledging when it comes up, and then changing it energetically to that other frequency. Easier said than done. Sounds really simple when I say it that way, but that is layers of acknowledging what your unconscious or subconscious immediate reactive state is, and then trying to heal that to a more open, responsive state. So
how can you heal that through acupuncture?
So then that would be an intention you would have coming in to work with somebody. Yeah. And then we would look to see, again, like certain organ centers are correlated with certain emotions. And we can start seeing where those things are residing, and then help the chi flow and open those up, as well as your intention of releasing that. So then we would dig a little deeper and find out what stresses you out, what situations stress you out, and give you breathing tools, give you meditation tools, and then acupuncture to help the flow. I do this one kind of treatment, and it's beautiful. Like, we start very physical. We do something called cupping. I don't know if you heard of cupping.
You showed me cupping, but I think I was too afraid to do it with you. Do it at all, because you have all these red marks all over the place. But tell us more about cupping and how it can help.
Yeah, so I take someone from a very physical, dense place, then to a very subtle energy circulation place. And so cupping helps move the chi and blood because it's so physical. You're creating a suction with the cups, you're putting it on the body, and then it's pulling blood and body fluid through channels to open them up, which does amazing things physically. I mean, it opens up tension and fascia blockages, and it helps the flow of blood and eliminate toxins that might have been stuck in certain tissues. So it's a beautiful technique in and of itself, and it's very physical. So we're working on a very physical level of opening up the chi flow. And then we can do a little bit of Tui Na, or Chinese massage, to again help move the flow of the chi, blood, and body fluid. And then after that, we then do the acupuncture. And the acupuncture then starts to work on the subtle energy levels of the body and where your imbalance might be from your diagnosis. And after you do this physical, and then you go into this acupuncture level, I also do something else where we massage that lower dantian area to open up anything we might be holding in that center. And that's where things get really interesting, because after you've worked on that physical flow, and then you're working with the acupuncture on the energetic subtle flow, when you start hitting certain points in the abdomen area, and because I've done this for a long time, I can feel where certain stagnation is. I'll hit a point and they'll feel it somewhere else in their body completely. Wow. They'll feel it in their ear and their lips and their toes and their knees. They'll have memories come up. They'll have emotions start to release. And so it's really beautiful because you're opening up that lower dantian, which is kind of where those traumas are stored. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the psoas and the relationship with the adrenals and all that stuff, mm-hmm. it makes sense that we're opening up these primal traumas that are like blocking our flow.
Yeah. And, I've heard so many times that the muscles have memory, like literally. Mm-hmm. So when you have a pain in your neck or in your back, that might be an indication of something that happened. Or even I've noticed people who walk upright, right? Mm-hmm. And they're very open and outspoken and loving, and then shy people kind of almost seem like they're protecting their heart. You know, they're kind of
The
slouched
posturing.
over, you know, they don't go in for a hug because it's almost like they don't want to open up those different, I don't know what you call it, meridians or
Yeah.
chakras,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
but yeah, that makes sense. This is so fascinating to me because I have studied the body from more of a traditional standpoint of, you
Yeah.
know, muscles and exercising, and what you were saying,
Mhm.
you do kind of like a rigorous, the cupping on the body to
Mhm.
move the blood flow. And like when my clients or myself have an intense workout, like I love strength training, like
Yeah.
to me it gets the blood flowing and I
Yeah.
always feel good. And even my clients,
Mhm.
they're like, I had a crappy day, and then after they work out, they're like, wow, that is just what I needed. And it's just like,
Mhm.
it's similar in the sense because it's probably moving that blood and
Mhm.
that chi around
Yes.
to
Yeah.
push out anything that's like stagnant.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you combine that with breath work on top of it. Like, you know, you're all about proper breathing and alignment when you do things so you don't injure the body. But when
Yeah.
they breathe like that, they're actually moving the chi internally too, because that diaphragm goes and moves major blood vessels in the body and lymph systems in the body. And that starts to activate chi flow too, because chi and blood go hand in hand.
Wow.
So yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to examine those tools on even a higher level than what we think they are, you
Yeah.
know?
Let's talk about the lymph system.
Okay.
I recently learned about brushing. Is that what you call
Oh,
it? You're like,
yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I was told that, especially if there's a lot of inflammation in the body, that
Mm-hmm.
the lymph system, it doesn't have a way to drain itself. So if
Right.
you can help it by brushing, you can move all the toxins around.
Yeah.
So is that part of Chinese medicine? Like
Yeah.
brushing and
Brushing. They also have something called gua sha, which is like, oh gosh, I think I have one somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it's like a little stone tool that's flat. And then you can use that to scrape the body and move the body and the chi and blood flow in certain areas. There's also facial gua sha that helps with puffiness and inflammation in the face. You can do
yep.
that. You can do facial gua sha.
That's
So yeah,
actually
there's
a
a
good
lot of,
beauty product that's now being sold. You roll it on your face,
yeah.
and that's what it's used for. So you don't have puffiness and you don't have like wrinkles and
Yeah. So it's all about moving the lymph system, because the lymph system doesn't have any way. It's like the venous system too. It doesn't have any way to push itself back. So exercise, breath work is so important because exercise moves the muscles around the lymph system and pushes it back. And then that excess help of brushing and scraping with the gua sha technique also help move the body fluid towards its flow again. So yeah, all those techniques are wonderful and really helpful in detoxifying the body, because the lymph system is about the immune system being out of balance, right? And having an overload where it's not being able to flow properly. And that's where you then start to look at the Zhen Qi again. What things are affecting the immune system, where then, in this case, dampness is accumulating. And dampness is considered like a pathogenic state in Chinese medicine. So then we would analyze dampness. And dampness usually goes, it could go to the kidneys too, but usually goes to the spleen, because the spleen is supposed to transform dampness or fluids in the body. And if it's not doing properly, then there's something wrong with the spleen. And so what's wrong with the spleen? It's excessive worrying, overthinking, overworking, over energy to something that doesn't serve you, all that kind of stuff
so
works
when
in
you
that way.
say dampness, what do you mean? Like what physical symptoms could show that you have dampness?
Swelling. Yeah, just like you said,
Swelling.
like
Okay,
puffiness and
got it.
swelling and edema. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
Edema.
then there's another second factor with the kidneys. The kidneys have kind of like a metabolic warming fire in the middle of them called the Ming Men fire. And that fire is supposed to also help with fluid control. And if the kidneys are deficient and your kidneys are weak, you're going to get edema as well. So it's interesting to, like, the way they look at it as opposed to physiologically what we know about it and the correlations between the two. Yeah.
I know you guys look at the tongue too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how's my tongue?
It's hard to see in the lighting. It's best to see it in natural light, but it looks pretty good. I'm not going to tell everybody your business on
No, you
but
can't.
we can.
Okay.
So if you want to, let's stick your tongue out. Let's look for a little bit. All right. Okay. So right now, just from this lighting and what I'm looking at, we see a little bit of ridges around the tongue.
Yeah, I always have ridges, and I'm like, are my teeth too close together?
No, it could be that you're suffering a little bit from a spleen chi deficiency. So that's an energy deficiency. And what it means sometimes is the energy could just fluctuate a little bit. And I don't know, and your tongue is slightly purple. So we want to look at circulating blood in your body and activating chi and blood circulation in your body. And from the light, I kind of can't tell, but there could be a slight coating of dampness. Okay. So it all kind of makes sense, right? And it's very slight. Yours is not severe at all. It's very mild, by the way. But it could be that we need to look at, are you overworking right now? Are you stressed out right now?
I am so overworking. You don't even know.
Yeah. So that affects your spleen chi. And then the spleen chi is your digestive function that transforms the dampness. So then you're really sensitive to anything. If you eat something wrong, your body's going to tell you, because your spleen chi is not at that point where it can handle it, because it's already battling your overworking. Does that make sense?
That's interesting because I went vegan months ago, and not last night, but the night before, I had some dairy, which I don't usually eat. I was up all night just in pain. Like my stomach was just no, that is not working for you.
Yeah, and that's the dampness that we saw. So that explains the tongue coating that I saw a little bit too, was the dairy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got it. So how do I work with that?
So then what we want to do is we want to start to tonify and work with the spleen energy. We want to tonify the spleen chi. So we could do it acupuncture, nutrition, herbal wise, depending on what your situation, the other presentations when we do a deeper diagnosis is. But for you, it would be making sure you're getting proper rest, right?
Rest.
Staying away from cold foods, because cold foods injure your spleen chi. Okay, so that's no ice drinks, that's not ice cream, that's not any of those stuff. But to have more warm teas and room temperature water, stuff like that. And then we also want to then think about what kind of herbs can help the digestion and help the spleen chi. So, we do mostly formulas, but you're going to look at herbs like ginger, like ginseng.
I love ginger.
All that stuff.
Favorite.
Yeah, so those types of things to start to warm the middle jowl and the stomach and help tonify. If there's some edema and some swelling, then we're going to look at other herbs that help drain the dampness and tonify the spleen function. So that's kind of how we would work. And then we would look at what are the factors that might have caused this. So again, we know that the ice cream sends you through the roof, and dairy is going to send you through the roof. Mm-hmm. So we want that out of your diet. We want to look at how to balance your work energy. So if work is really draining you because, you're overworking, how can we create a balance? And a lot of times it's energetics. I work with a lot of people that work a lot, and the motto then becomes of their life, I work a lot, and I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to do this. And what happens is they never let anything go. So what happens is they carry this project to this project to this, or this part of the day to that part of the day to that part of the day, and they can't be in the flow of it, and it starts to accumulate on you, and you can't help it. Like as an acupuncturist, sometimes I'd have 20 people in a day, and I'm like, it would carry. So I started working with this concept of energy bubbles, and I would think of each activity or each person I was working on or whatever project I was working on as a bubble, and that the only thing I could do to help anything is to be with that aspect of it for the moment I'm with it. And then when I'm done with it, I step out of the bubble and I let it do its thing, because it's going to take its course, because I gave it what I could give it. And then I'm going to go to the next energy bubble and I'm going to give it my energy there. And then that usually handles my fatigue when I start getting stressed out, because instead of wearing things, I come to the present moment of giving my energy to something and then moving on to something else to exchange in a flow of energy.
Yeah.
And that usually helps with a lot of the work stress too.
You're probably really good at forgiving people.
You know, yeah, I am to a fault.
Yeah.
So,
And
but
that
yeah,
brings me
no,
back to balance, what you were talking about. We need balance,
yeah,
probably because you have to have a level of protection to protect
hmm
you,
yeah,
you know, and sometimes, you know, it's when you forgive too much, you you know, you kind of neglect the self.
self, yeah. So that's really good. Yeah, if we can really meditate, it's good for everybody to figure out what does forgiveness mean to them.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you just get stuck on, oh, it's forgiving that person and then letting your guard down and making you weak, you know. But it's really about forgiving an energy. And it's not only that person, but it's forgiving yourself too. Forgiveness is huge, right? It's not just that one concept that we think of. And forgiveness, um, in the indigenous perspective, is one of the concepts that help us regain unity in society again too, and within our family and within our healing. um, Forgiveness allows you to release something that is zapping you
Mhm.
from your pure potential.
Mhm.
Because if I can't let go of something and I can't forgive something, I'm going to give it more energy and give it more life. And if it's negative, it's going to be negative,
Mhm.
you know? And so then it blows up into something maybe it would have never blown up, but I'm gardening it.
Mhm.
So I need to forgive it. I need to release it. And I need to, just because you forgive somebody doesn't mean that you allow dangerous or negative aspects into your environment, but you can forgive it and let them go on their journey. And then you can continue on your journey and be clear of
Yeah.
that energetic draw.
Tell me, what are some of the most profound people that you've worked on, or their stories in terms of once they forgave or once they unblocked their chi, you know, what have you seen transform? What illnesses or symptoms
Mm,
have been alleviated once they were
mm.
able to let go energetically of that unforgiveness?
Yeah, right. So that's a lot. I can't get it, man. If I get into too much
Yeah,
detail, I
don't
don't
give
want
us too much
to.
detail, but like a
but
broad.
but generally, I've seen things in relationships where maybe one person was in like maybe went outside of the marriage for whatever reason, and usually that would be a really crazy interaction when people, when the person found out. But in balancing and working with their energy and putting them in a state of balance, they were able to go back into that marriage and analyze it from a more open and understanding perspective, as opposed to the intensity that like the person I knew would like do something probably pretty crazy, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But they were able to go in and actually talk with the other person and come to agreement and understand what was going on within the dynamic of the relationship, instead of being attached to the one action itself.
Mhm.
And whether it works out or not, you don't know, but at least you're not stuck in that, and you go from a healing perspective if you wanted a unit to survive, or if you need to understand that that unit needs to separate, because what happens is we usually then just become about the infidelity, in that case, and then you become about that energy, and what happens is it just leads to more drama with it, and not an understanding of where
Right.
you need to heal and maybe separate, or both of you need to heal and then come together and choose each other from a different perspective. So that's one thing. I've had that. And then also, other people have had, stage fright. I had one person had stage fright and was a performer and didn't understand why they would get anxious all the time. We started doing some of the energy work, like I told you, with the cupping and everything, and working with the lower dantian, and they all of a sudden got these repressed memories that came up
Wow.
from something that happened in their childhood, and just started releasing emotionally, crying and everything. And then next thing you know, the stage fright was like
Okay.
not even there when they went on stage again. And this person performed in front of a lot of people, so
Wow.
I could relate to stage fright like that in front of all these
Yeah.
people. So they were able to manage that. And then it's beautiful to see like healing relationships within families, between parents and parents and offsprings, and all that kind of stuff. Usually when you're able to start to let go of your reactiveness and become more centered and stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, then you're able to become into a space where you can communicate more on a spirit level, and acknowledging that. And so I've seen a lot of healing within families and family dynamics.
And what's your parasympathetic nervous system? What is that?
Like you have your autonomic nervous system, these things that operate your, like yin yang, if you want to think of it. You have your yin aspect and your yang aspect. And the more yang is your sympathetic nervous system. That's the one that's also known as the fight or flight system.
Okay.
Where something happens and then you need to respond to it. Your body gets the stressor, whatever the stressor might be.
It starts,
and then you start moving and reacting.
That kind of stuff.
And that just keeps you going, keeps you ready to fight something or run from something.
I'm the runner, remember? So I feel that.
That's right.
Here.
Right. Exactly. That's so funny. And then you have your parasympathetic, which is the opposite of that, which is your rest and digest. I kind of like the fight or flight and the rest or digest system, but sometimes we look at the fight or flight and saying that's bad. Mm-hmm. And again, if we look at the whole, it's a necessary part to the other piece of the puzzle. So if we just stay in rest and digest, we're a couch potato.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Exactly. We're not doing anything. So we need to go to the sympathetic, and it needs to be a dynamic balance between the two. But unfortunately, in our society, we're so sympathetic. It's so operating that we need to kind of bring up that parasympathetic to help balance things again. I don't know if that explained it for you.
Yeah, no, yeah, it did. I know I've been talking to you for a while, and I love everything we're diving into, but I really want to get into, you told me that you would teach me and my viewers something that we can do physically that is kind of like acupuncture, but I believe you said acupressure. You're going to show us some pressure points and meridians and how we can do something on ourselves to help cope with whatever physical ailments or emotional ailments that we are experiencing.
Yeah, I could teach you just some, and there's so many things out there. And so what I want to show you is just something quick and something simple that you can do just to zone in and connect with yourself again. And breath is super important, and breath work is super important because that diaphragm moves into that lower dantian area and creates pressure and movement in the upper too, in the middle and even in the upper, because you're moving the fluids and the circulation with breath. So the first thing is just to tune into your breath and try to get a belly breath. So sit in a good posture with your head kind of hanging off of a string, your shoulders kind of falling off that string, and then just start to connect to your breath. You can even put your hand on your abdomen and let the breath drop into the stomach slowly and expand. And when it expands, give it a couple seconds at the expansion point just to kind of feel its end point. And then slowly start to exhale by squeezing the navel to the spine and really blow it out. And even push at the end, the navel to the spine with a tiny kind of crunch. And then let the breath drop in again. Just slowly like that, in and out. And after you get a feeling of your air flowing nicely into the lower dantian, when you expand the next lower breath, I want you then to take a little bit of expansion into the chest too, and kind of see if you can fill up the chest a little bit with air, just by putting your mind to it. So you would breathe in, and then when you're at your full abdomen capacity, then kind of breathe into the chest. And feel kind of the chamber expand in the chest and around the heart. And then collapse that again. And you can just focus on the belly to the spine at the end. And let that flow. And do that for a few breaths. As you do this, really pay attention to what you're feeling in the body as far as sensations go. See if you can feel a circulation and a flow happening. See if you feel an area that's not flowing so well, and you can breathe into that a little bit and try to get it to flow like everything else is flowing. And just play around with your consciousness and awareness of the physical body and what this does to it. And then relax for a second. You've been doing it. So how do you feel right now?
I kept on wanting to yawn.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
And then you should yawn.
I'm like, what is
Because
that?
yawn is a release.
Okay.
Right?
Maybe
Yawn is a
my body
release
needed
of,
an extra release.
yeah, an extra release. And if you think of it, it's a release of worry. It's a release of stress.
Yes.
It's a release of stuck energy. And that goes along with that little spleen chi thing you're dealing with right now too. So just yawn, let it out.
I will.
And then after you get into this state, did you feel things moving in your body too? Can you feel the chambers in your stomach
Yeah, I
and
definitely felt
chest?
the chest. I guess I'm a stomach or a diaphragm breather because I
Mm-hmm.
usually don't feel my chest expand, and
Yeah.
I really felt it in my chest.
Yeah, so that's good. So as you do that, you'll start to feel like when you stop, then you start to feel a warm flow. You feel more of a groundedness and a connectedness and being centered. When you do that, then there's some great points you can massage after you do this breath. So you want to do it. You don't want to just start massaging. You want to breathe, be in a center, and then we can start massaging. So one of the great points that I love doing, it's called the 4 gates of chi in the body. And I love the names of they give to a lot of these points because it gives you a visual image of what they're all about. And if you think of a gate controls the flow of people that come in and out of your house or in your yard. And these gates are to control the flow of chi in your body. And so these are called the 4 gates of chi. And one of them is in between this index finger point below here. So there's a bone here that goes from your wrist to the first knuckle. Okay. And if you go into the midpoint of it and then dip a little bit into the flesh, massage it, and you'll feel a really strong sensation. And a lot of people know this point because people say, push this point if you have a headache.
Oh, yeah, this one hurts
point.
if you push it really hard.
Yeah, you'll push it and you'll feel it. So massaging this point as you breathe is really, really amazing to stimulate the chi flow in the upper body. And you can do this side as well. So you can alternate massaging this point, which is large intestine 4, by the way. And then the opposite, I'm kind of jumping to the next one. We would spend more time with it. Is I have shorts on, so I'm going to show you my foot. Wait, maybe I'll take the phone so I can show you this point. This is the other 4. So the other 2 points we're going to do are the other gates, if you will. So tell me if you can see my foot. Hold on.
Can
you see my foot?
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so my finger, you're going to press right in between these 2 bones.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing it.
And you'll feel really tense. There's liver 2, which is really close to where the bones join. And then there's, liver 2, which is right down here. And then there's liver 3, which is kind of in between these. Uh-huh. And you can massage them both. And that's really good. The liver 3 is the other 2 gates that you can massage. So when I massage, I usually will put like my foot then crossed on me like this. Okay. On my knee. I don't know if you can see that. And then I'll massage this way.
Podcast. I had such a great time. I learned so much. You guys definitely try some of those acupressure points and those breathing techniques at home. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. Please share, subscribe, and we will see you next time on the Fit with Fallon podcast. Take care.